Hello, stream. Welcome to the final installment
Hello,
of
Strain.
our Annihilation stream by Jeff Vandermeers. Vandermeer. Final
Vandermeer.
chapter. Final chapter called Disillusion. I don't know what he just did there. It sounded like a squawk, but I don't know. Okay. So, he wants me to catch everybody up on where we left off. And from what I can remember, our biologist, main character, is the final person in the expedition, the only person left alive. The psychologist, she found at the bottom of the lighthouse, kind of crumpled on a bunch of like rock structures by the beach. She had a conversation with her before she died, but she didn't really get any more answers than when she first came here, and the psychologist died, not without trying to hypnotize her one last time to basically self-destruct herself, kill herself. But it didn't work because she's obviously immune because of the spores and things. And she made her way back to camp, where she was expecting the surveyor to be waiting for her. And the surveyor, as she was approaching camp, attempted to also kill her. Not really sure why, other than the surveyor was left there for a day or two to just stew over why the biologist had gone to the lighthouse without her, and I think she eventually kind of just convinced herself that the biologist was a bad guy, and not to trust her. And also, I think being in Area X kind of is naturally changing her mind as well, and making her go insane. So this biologist ended up killing the surveyor, which is crazy because the surveyor was like trained in
Combat.
she was in the military.
Yeah.
So we find out that the biologist actually was able to kill the surveyor in the moment because it's been several days since she inhaled the spores, and she claims that she has these sort of like super senses, essentially, and was able to know exactly where the surveyor was in the tall grass, and she was able to outmaneuver her. It's all crazy. We still don't really know what's happening. She was able to obtain her late husband's journal from the psychologist after she died, but she has chosen not to read it until she finally has time to
I thought she read a little bit of it.
Digest it. Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet, no. She might have read like the front page back when she first found some of it in that giant stockpile. But yeah, the last thing was she killed the surveyor, and the surveyor had dug a grave in the ground, and she didn't really know who it was for. What her intention was. Like, was it for biologist, the anthropologist, or whatever? We don't know. We don't know anything. Now we're in the final chapter, and our biologist is the last one alive, and I don't even know what she's gonna do, but we'll find out. Chapter 5, Disillusion. I have never done well in cities, even though I lived in one by necessity. Because my husband needed to be there, because the best jobs for me were there. Because I had self-destructed when I'd had opportunities in the field, but I was not a domesticated animal. The dirt and grit of a city, the unending wakefulness of it, the crowdedness, the constant light obscuring the stars, the omnipresent gasoline fumes, the thousand ways it presaged our destruction. None of these things appealed to me. "Where do you go so late at night?" my husband had asked several times, about 9 months before he left. Phew.
Bless you.
As part of the 11th expedition. There was an unspoken "really" before the go. I could hear it, loud and insistent. "Nowhere," I said. "Everywhere." "No, really. Where do you go?" It was to his credit that he had never tried to follow me. "I'm not cheating on you, if that's what you mean." The directness of that usually stopped him, even if it didn't reassure him. I had told him a late-night walk alone relaxed me, allowed me to sleep when the stress or boredom of my job became too much. But in truth, I didn't walk except the distance to an empty lot overgrown with grass. The empty lot appealed to me because it wasn't truly empty. 2 species of snail called it home, and 3 species of lizard, along with butterflies and dragonflies. From lowly origins, a muddy rut from truck tires. A puddle had, over time, collected rainwater to become a pond. Fish eggs had found their way to that place, and minnows and tadpoles could be seen there, and aquatic insects. Weeds had grown up around it, making the soil less likely to erode into the water. Songbirds on migration used it as a refueling station. As habitats went, the lot wasn't complex, but its proximity dulled the impulse in me to just get in a car and start driving for the nearest wild place. I liked to visit late at night because I might see a wary fox passing through, or catch a sugar glider resting on a telephone pole. Night hawks gathered nearby to feast off the insects bombarding the street lamps. Mice and owls played out ancient rituals of predator and prey. They all had a watchfulness about them that was different from animals in true wilderness. This was a jaded watchfulness, the result of a long and weary history. Tales of bad faith encounters in human-occupied territory, tragic past events. I didn't tell my husband my walk had a destination because I wanted to keep the lot for myself. There are so many things couples do from habit, and because they are expected to, and I didn't mind those rituals. Sometimes I even enjoyed them, but I needed to be selfish about that patch of urban wilderness. It expanded in my mind while I was at work, calmed me, gave me a series of miniature dramas to look forward to. I didn't know that while I was applying this band-aid to my need to be unconfined, my husband was dreaming of Area X and much greater open spaces. But later, the parallel helped assuage my anger at his leaving, and then my confusion when he came back in such a changed form. Even if the stark truth is that I still did not truly understand what I had missed about him. The psychologist had said, "The border is advancing a little bit more every year." But I found that statement too limiting, too ignorant. There were thousands of dead spaces like the lot I had observed, thousands of transitional environments that no one saw, that had been rendered invisible because they were not of use. Anything could inhabit them for a time without anyone noticing. We had come to think of the border as this monolithic invisible wall, but if members of the 11th expedition had been able to return without our noticing, couldn't other things have already gotten through? In this new phase of my brightness, okay, so she's referring to her new state of being, and she's referring to it as the brightness, like she's actually, I think, glowing.
This is so weird.
Yeah. I also just think everything is more bright to her as well, because it sounds like she has better vision, just better everything. I don't know. Recovering from my wounds. Oh yeah, she's like, her wounds are regenerative too. Like things are getting weird. The tower called incessantly to me. I could feel its physical, but Okay, real quick, let me rewind for a second. When I'm talking about the regenerative stuff, she hasn't explicitly stated that her wounds are regenerating. She's kind of implicitly describing sensations of potential regeneration. I think it's like being implied, but she hasn't actually said her wounds are being healed. I could feel its physical presence under the earth with a clarity that mimicked that first flush of attraction, when you knew, without looking exactly where the object of desire stood in the room. Part of this was my own need to return, but part might be due to the effect of the spores, and so I fought it because I had work to do first. This work might also, if I was left to it without any strange intercession, put everything in perspective. Yeah, I'm like, girl, what work? Are you really gonna... What? So she's got all these samples. She's gonna look at them. But, like, what is she gonna do with that data? I'm just... What is she doing? I mean, I guess I would do that as well, just to know. But...
Do you think that, like, she's kind of... Do you feel like she's accepted her fate of what's been happening in here at all?
I think she knows she's gonna die. You know, I think she's kind of accepted her fate because of all the other expedition members. I think she knows there's a high chance that she will probably die in this base, but she's in a trance.
Yeah.
She's in a trance, she's doing her work, and she's also feeling euphoric. And she wants to be here, even though she knows she's gonna die. It's a weird and liminal space to be in, right? It's like,
right.
You know you're gonna die. You know you're gonna die because you're in this space, but you're okay with it because you're in a trance? Whatever.
Well, like you said, she's like euphoric. She's like...
She's euphoric.
She's almost transforming.
She's transforming, yeah.
And I feel like her analytical brain kind of enjoys trying to decipher everything that's happening. Like, she's like breaking things apart. That's like all this book comes off of.
She's living off of crumbs. She's living off of crumbs of potentially, like, knowing what's happening, and then like, as soon as she gets closer, she takes like 10 steps back.
Yeah, it's weird. She doesn't seem like pressed by the fact that she doesn't really know anything. She seems almost like invigorated by it. Would you say that? I don't mean...
I wouldn't say she's invigorated by it. I think it makes her super uncomfortable. I think it makes her super uncomfortable, but I think I just think she's in a trance. I don't know. No, I don't think she likes it. But for some reason she likes being in Area X, like everybody else seem to report in the journals. But like, why? That's the thing, is like, why? Like, why did they... The only constant in Area X is uncertainty. So it's like an oxymoron, like, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Anyway. Alright. To start with, I had to quarantine the lies and obfuscation of my superiors from data that pertain to the actual eccentricities of Area X. For example, the secret knowledge that there had been a proto-Area X, a kind of preamble, and beachhead established first. As much as seeing the mound of journals had radically altered my view of Area X, I did not think that the higher number of expeditions told me much more about the tower and its effects. It told me primarily that, even if the border was expanded, the progress of assimilation by Area X could still be considered conservative. The recurring data points found in the journals that related to repeating cycles and fluctuations of seasons of the strange and the ordinary were useful in establishing trends. But this information, too, my superiors probably knew, and therefore it could be considered something already reported by others. The myth that only a few early expeditions, the start date artificially suggested by the Southern Reach, had come to grief, reinforced the idea of cycles existing within the overall framework of an advance. The individual details chronicled by the journals might tell stories of heroism or cowardice, of good decisions and bad decisions, but ultimately they spoke to a kind of inevitability. No one had as yet plumbed the depths of intent or purpose in a way that had obstructed that intent or purpose. Hold on a second, let me read that again. No one had as yet plumbed the depths of intent or purpose in a way that had obstructed that intent or purpose. Everyone had died or been killed, returned changed or returned unchanged, but Area X had continued on as it always had. While our superiors seemed to fear any radical reimagining of the situation so much that they had continued to send in knowledge-strapped expeditions as if this was the only option. Feed Area X, but do not antagonize it, and perhaps someone will, through luck or mere repetition, hit upon some explanation, some solution before the world becomes Area X. There was no way I could corroborate any of these theories, but I took a grim comfort in coming up with them anyway. I left my husband's journal until last, even though its pull was as strong as the allure of the tower. Instead, I focused on what I had brought back. The samples from the ruined village and from the psychologist, along with samples of my own skin. I set up my microscope on the rickety table, which I suppose the surveyor had found already, so damaged it did not require her further attention. The cells of the psychologist, both from her unaffected shoulder and her wound, appeared to be normal human cells. So did the cells I examined from my own sample. This was impossible. I checked the samples over and over, even childishly pretending I had no interest in looking at them before sweeping down with an eagle eye. I was convinced that when I wasn't looking at them, these cells became something else, that the very act of observation changed everything. Now they're talking about quantum physics. I knew this was madness, and yet still I thought it. I felt as if Area X were laughing at me then. Every blade of grass, every stray insect, every drop of water. What would happen when the crawler reached the bottom of the tower? What would happen when it came back up? This is interesting. So she's saying that the cells came back normal.
That from the crawler?
No, from her skin. She took grafts of her skin, the psychologist's skin, and the surveyor's skin.
And there was
and
no...
she looked under, and they're all normal human cells. There was nothing abnormal about any of them. So, do we think that, I don't know. Her skin is normal. Her cells are normal. They are unchanged.
This is the point where you have to almost question, like, is she an unreliable narrator? And does she start to realize
this whole time.
Yeah, but does she realize that now maybe she's an unreliable narrator?
We'll see. She's known she's unreliable this whole time. But I think throughout the story, she's losing touch of even that. She's losing touch of her unreliability. And now she's trying to make things make sense, and they never did, and they still don't, and she's just like, but, I know that, like, I'm fucking morphing. No, she's
I'm morphing like a Power Ranger.
Yeah.
I'm morphing.
Then I examined the samples from the village moss from the forehead of one of the eruptions. Splinters of wood, a dead fox, a rat. The wood was indeed wood. The rat was indeed a rat. The moss and the fox were composed of modified human cells. Where lies the strange fruit that came from the hand of the sinner? I shall bring forth the seeds of the dead. Modified human cells.
What was modified?
The fox and the moss.
What the?
I don't know. I suppose I should have reared back from the microscope in shock, but I was beyond such reactions to anything that instrument might show me. Instead, I contented myself with quiet cursing. The boar on the way to base camp, the strange dolphins, the tormented beasts in the reeds, even the idea that replicas of members of the 11th expedition had crossed back over, all supported the evidence of my microscope. Transformations were taking place here, and as much as I had felt part of a natural landscape on my trek to the lighthouse, I could not deny that these habitats were transitional in a deeply unnatural way. A perverse sense of relief overtook me. At least now I had proof of something strange happening, along with the brain tissue that anthropologists had taken from the skin of the crawler. But then, though I'd had enough of samples, I ate lunch and decided against putting more effort into cleaning up the camp. Most of that task would have to fall to the next expedition. It was another brilliant, blinding afternoon of stunning blue sky allied with a comfortable heat. I sat for a time, watched the dragonflies skimming the long grass, the dipping, looping flight of a red-headed woodpecker. I was just putting off the inevitable, my return to the tower, and yet still I wasted time. When I finally picked up my husband's journal and started to read, the brightness washed over me in unending waves and connected me to the earth, the water, the trees, the air, as I opened up and kept on opening. Nothing about my husband's journal was expected, except for some terse, hastily scribbled exceptions. He had addressed most of the entries to me. I did not want this, and as soon as it became apparent, I had to resist the need to throw the journal away from me as if it were poison. My reaction had nothing to do with love or lack of love, but was more out of a sense of guilt. He had meant to share this journal with me, and now he was either truly dead, or existed in a state beyond any possible way for me to communicate with him, to reciprocate. The 11th expedition had consisted of 8 members, all male. Psychologist, 2 medics, including my husband, a linguist, a surveyor, biologist, an anthropologist, and an archaeologist. They had come to Area X in the winter, when the trees had lost most of their leaves, and the reeds had turned darker and thicker. The flowering bushes became sullen, and seemed to huddle along the path, as he put it. Fewer birds than indicated in reports, he wrote, but where did they go? Only the ghost bird knows. The sky frequently clouded over, and the water level in the cypress swamps was low. No rain the entire time we've been here, he wrote at the end of the first week. They too discovered what only I call the tower on their 5th or 6th day. I was ever more certain that the location of the base camp had been chosen to trigger that discovery, but their surveyor's opinion that they must continue mapping the wider area meant they followed a different course than ours. Interesting. So his expedition found the tower, and she suspects that they were planted, the base camp is planted so that they would inevitably run into it on their own. None of us were eager to climb down there, my husband wrote, me least of all. My husband had claustrophobia, sometimes even had to leave our bed in the middle of the night to go to sleep on the deck. Damn.
That sucks.
Yeah, jeez. For whatever reason, the psychologist did not, in this case, coerce the expedition to go down into the tower. They explored farther, past the ruined village, to the lighthouse and beyond. Of the lighthouse, my husband noted their horror at discovering the signs of carnage, but of being too respectful of the dead to put things right. By which I suppose he meant the overturned tables on the ground level. He did not mention the photograph of the lighthouse keeper on the wall of the landing, which disappointed me. But like me, they had discovered the pile of journals at the top of the lighthouse and been shaken by it. We had an intense argument about what to do. I wanted to abort the mission and return home, because clearly we had been lied to. But it was at this point that the psychologist apparently reestablished control, if of a tenuous sort. One of the directives for Area X was for each expedition to remain a unit, but in the very next entry, the expedition had decided to split up, as if to salvage the mission by catering solely to each person's will, and thus ensuring that no one would try to return to the border. The other medic, the anthropologist, the archaeologist, and the psychologist stayed in the lighthouse to read the journals and investigate the area around the lighthouse. The linguist and the biologist went back to explore the tower. My husband and the surveyor continued on past the lighthouse. "You would love it here," he wrote in a particularly manic entry that suggested to me not so much optimism as an unsettling euphoria. "You would love the light on the dunes. You would love the sheer expanse of wildness of it." They wandered up the coast for an entire week, mapping the landscape and fully expecting at some point to encounter the border, whatever form it might take, some obstacle that barred their progress. But they never did. Instead, the same habitat confronted them day after day. "We're heading north, I believe," he wrote. "But even though we cover a good 15 to 20 miles by nightfall, nothing has changed. It is all the same." Although he was quite emphatic that he did not mean they were somehow caught in a strange recurring loop, yet he knew that, by all rights, we should have encountered the border by now. Indeed, they were well into an expanse of what he called the Southern Reach that had not yet been charted, that we had been encouraged by the vagueness of our superiors to assume existed back beyond the border. I, too, knew that Area X ended abruptly not far past the lighthouse. How did I know this? Our superiors had told us during training, so in fact, I knew nothing at all. They turned back finally because, behind us, we saw strange cascading lights far distant, and, from the interior, more lights and sounds that we could not identify. We became concerned for the expedition members we had left behind. At the point when they turned back, they had come within a sight of a rocky island, the first island we have seen, which they felt a powerful urge to explore, although there was no easy way to get over to it.
You have a powerful urge, per se.
Per se. The island, per se, appeared to have been inhabited at one time. We saw stone houses dotting a dock below. Interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. The return trip to the lighthouse took 4 days, not 7, as if the land had contracted. At the lighthouse, they found the psychologist gone, and the bloody aftermath of a shootout on the landing halfway up. A dying survivor, the archaeologist, told us that something not of the world had come up the stairs and that it had killed the psychologist and then withdrawn from his body. But the psychologist came back later, the archaeologist raved. There were only 2 bodies, and neither was the psychologist. He could not account for the absence. He also could not tell us why then they had shot each other, except to say we did not trust ourselves over and over again. My husband noted that some of the wounds, that's what happened with the surveyor. The surveyor didn't trust the biologist, and she tried killing her. My husband noted that some of the wounds I saw were not from bullets, and even the blood spatter on the walls did not correspond to what I knew of crime scenes. There was a strange residue on the floor. The archaeologist propped himself up in the corner of the landing and threatened to shoot us if I came close enough to see his wounds. Soon enough, though, he was dead. Afterward, they dragged the bodies from the landing and buried them high up on the beach, a little distance from the lighthouse. It was difficult, Ghostbird, and I don't know that we ever really recovered. Not really. This left the linguist and the biologist at the tower. The surveyor suggested either going back up the coast past the lighthouse or following the beach down the coast, but we both knew this was just an avoidance of the facts. What he was really saying was that we should abandon the mission, that we should lose ourselves in the landscape. That landscape was impinging on them now. The temperature dipped and rose violently. Oh my god. There were rumblings deep underground that manifested as slight tremors. The sun came to them with a greenish tinge, as if somehow the border was distorting our vision. They also saw flocks of birds headed inland, not of the same species, but hawks and ducks, herons and eagles all grouped together as if in common cause. What the fuck?
These guys had a fucking rough time.
Yeah, Jesus. Worse than the biologist so far. At least the landscape hasn't, gotten too extreme yet. At the tower, they ventured only a few levels down before coming back up. I noticed no mention of words on the wall. Okay, they didn't get the words on the wall. Interesting. If the linguist and the biologist were inside, they were much farther down, but we had no interest in following them. They returned to base camp only to find the body of the biologist stabbed several times. The linguist had left a note that read simply, "Went to the tunnel, do not look for me." I felt a strange pang of sympathy for a fallen colleague. No doubt the biologist had tried to reason with the linguist, or so I told myself. Perhaps he had tried to kill the linguist, but the linguist had clearly already been ensnared by the tower, by the words of the crawler. Knowing the meaning of the words on such intimate terms might have been too much for anyone, I realized now. The surveyor and my husband returned to the tower at dusk. Why is not apparent from the journal entries? There began to be breaks that corresponded to the passage of some hours with no recap. But during the night, they saw a ghastly procession heading into the tower. 7 of the 8 members of the 11th expedition, including a doppelganger of my husband and the surveyor.
What the?
Oh my god, hold on. Okay, sorry. Again, this is just so... just dropping bombs like usual. Okay, let me read this one more time. The surveyor and my husband returned to the tower at dusk. Why is not apparent from the journal entries. There began to be breaks that corresponded to the passage of some hours with no recap. But during the night, they saw a ghastly procession heading into the tower. 7 of the 8 members of the 11th expedition, including a doppelganger of my husband and the surveyor. And there before me, myself. I walked so stiffly. I had such a blank look on my face. It was so clearly not me. And yet it was me. A kind of shock froze both me and the surveyor. We did not try to stop them. Somehow it seemed impossible to try to stop ourselves. And I won't lie, we were terrified. We could do nothing but watch until they descended.
This is her reading her husband's recollection,
yes.
Correct? Okay, good.
Yes. So she keeps going back and forth between reading direct quotes and then just narrating it herself. So this is a direct quote from him. A kind of shock froze both me and the surveyor. We did not try to stop them. Somehow it seemed impossible to try to stop ourselves. And I won't lie, we were terrified. We could do nothing but watch until they had descended. For a moment afterward, it all made sense to me. Everything that had happened. We were dead. We were ghosts roaming a haunted landscape. And although we didn't know it, people lived normal lives here. Everything was as it should be here. But we couldn't see it through the veil, the interference. That's the end of the quote. Slowly, my husband shook off this feeling. They waited, hidden in the trees beyond the tower, for several hours, to see if the doppelgangers would return. They argued about what they would do if that happened. The surveyor wanted to kill them. My husband wanted to interrogate them. In the residual shock, neither of them made much of the fact that the psychologist was not among their number. At one point, a sound like hissing steam emanated from the tower, and a beam of light shot out into the sky, then abruptly cut off, but still no one emerged, and eventually the two men returned to base camp.
What the hell's going on?
I don't know. This is fucking wacky. It was at this point that they decided to go their separate ways. The surveyor had seen all he cared to see and planned to return down the trail from base camp to the border immediately. My husband refused because he suspected from some of the readings in the journal that this idea of return through the same means as our entry might in fact be a trap. My husband had, over the course of time, having encountered no obstacle to travel farther north, quote, grown suspicious of the entire idea of borders, although we could not yet synthesize the intensity of this feeling into a coherent theory. Interspersed with this direct account of what had happened to the expedition were more personal observations, most of which I am reluctant to summarize here, except there was one passage that pertains to Area X and to our relationship to. Passage states, seeing all of this, experiencing all of it, even when it's bad, I wish you were here. I wish we had volunteered together. I would have understood you better here, on the trek north. We wouldn't have needed to say anything if you didn't want to. It wouldn't have bothered me, not at all. We wouldn't have turned back. We would have kept going until we couldn't go farther. It's the end of the passage. Slowly, painfully, I realized what I had been reading from the very first words of his journal. My husband had had an inner life that went beyond his gregarious exterior, and if I had known enough to let him inside my guard, I might have understood this fact. Except I hadn't, of course. I had let tidal pools and fungi that could devour plastic inside my guard, but not him. Of all the aspects of the journal, this ate at me the most. He had created his share of our problems, by pushing me too hard, by wanting too much, by trying to see something in me that didn't exist. But I could have met him partway and retained my sovereignty, and now it was too late. His personal observations included many grace notes, a description in the margin of a tidal pool in the rocks down the coast just beyond the lighthouse, a lengthy observation of the atypical use of an outcropping of oysters at low tide by a skimmer seeking to kill a large fish. Photographs of the tidal pool had been stuck in a sleeve in the back. Placed carefully in the sleeve too were pressed wildflowers, a slender seed pod, a few unusual leaves. My husband would have cared little for any of this, even the focus to observe skimmer and write a page of notes would have required great concentration from him. I knew these elements were intended for me, and me alone. There were no endearments, but I understood in part because of this restraint. He knew how much I hated words like love. The last entry written upon his return to the lighthouse read, I am going back up the coast, but not on foot. There was a boat in the ruined village, staved in, rotting, but I have enough wood from the wall outside the lighthouse to fix it. I'll follow the shoreline as far as I can go, to the island and perhaps beyond. If you ever read this, that is where I am going. That is where I will be. Could there be, even within all these transitional ecosystems, one still more transitional, at the limits of the tower's influence but not yet under the border's influence? After reading the journal, I was left with the comfort of that essential recurring image of my husband, putting out to sea in a boat he had rebuilt, out through the crashing surf to the calm just beyond. Of him following the coastline north, alone, seeking in that experience the joy of small moments remembered from happier days. It made me fiercely proud of him. It showed resolve. It showed bravery. It bound him to me in a more intimate way than we had ever seemed to have while together. In glimmers and shreds of thought in the aftermath of my reading, I wondered if he kept a journal still, or if the dolphin's eye had been familiar for a reason other than it was so human. But soon enough I banished this nonsense. Some questions will ruin you if you are denied the answer long enough. Oh my goodness. Oh.
What? What's up? What's up? Speak to me.
I'm getting so tired.
She's getting so tired. She needs to push through the sleep. Because if she doesn't... Wait, what's the face for?
I don't know.
What's the face for?
I don't know. I just made a face. Bloody fucking hell. Sorry.
Oh my god. She's out of control.
I feel I'm affected by the spores.
You are kind of infected by the spores. I've known this about you for a while.
Why didn't you say anything? I'm fucking...
I feel
The
like
brightness is getting worse.
I feel like I like the spores more than I liked you before the spores, so... Sorry. That's a good thing. You're like really mushroomy now. Amanda was talking to me about... Oh. I guess it... Well, Amanda was talking to me about her friends. I shouldn't say this on the stream, but I get it. Amanda who? One of her friends is recently sober. And Amanda puts it that way. Sober, yeah.
What, she's still smoking weed or something?
She went... Well, yeah, she's Cali sober, but whatever. That's actually why I say this, but she wanted to throw a party after she got out of rehab, and
that's the most retarded thing I've ever heard.
and then apparently her roommate brought twisted teas, and she was like, "No, get that out of here!" And then like her boyfriend showed up with like mushroom chocolates. And she did them, and I was like, what do you even call that? Like, what's it like where you don't drink beer or whatever, you don't drink alcohol, I'm sorry, but you do mushrooms? We came up with...
It's called doing drugs.
We call it gnome sober. that made me a little...
Mushrooms are very, very mild, but like...
Are they?
Yeah.
In what way? What do you mean mild?
My friend told me he took mushrooms and like nothing barely changed. Like lights got a little bit more colorful.
See, I've heard that too, but I've heard that like in low dosages. I've heard that like... Oh boy. Ah! I've heard that like you can go pretty far with mushrooms if things start getting a little bit wild. But like Amanda had like the gummies, the... What do you call it? Mushroom gummies, but they have a specific name to them. But she said that, yeah, like it just made the lights a little bit more colorful. She said they're very, very mild. But she also... Oh! I guess I died. But she also said that, like, that's not what she had heard from, like, people who actually eat the shit, like the gross ass.
Maybe you need to eat a lot of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people like can't even keep it down though because it's so
They're
hard to
nasty.
ingest.
Yeah, they're like
It's so gross.
it's like eating swamp. It's like eating
which is why you have to
swamp.
like bake it into something, but then
Yeah.
does that compromise like the chemistry of the mushroom that gets you high to begin with, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's different types of mushrooms.
Genuine question. Does it?
Oh,
I have no idea.
there are different types of mushrooms, right?
I would assume so, but like with psychedelic mushrooms, I don't. My question is, I guess, if you bake them or cook them into things, does it reduce the potency?
No, I would say maybe a little bit, but I think the point is to literally just make them slightly more appetizing. So they're just nasty
No,
as
I
shit.
know that, but yeah.
I'm saying, like, I don't think it reduces the potency.
Yeah.
If anything, I
don't
think
know
it's
that.
I think it's probably negligible, right?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I don't know. I'm not a shroom taker.
Google's right there.
Oh, well, jeez.
I'm sorry, just
When you cook mushrooms, like the psychedelic ones, does it make them less potent? Cooking them above a certain temperature can degrade the psilocybin.
see.
Above a certain temperature, though.
Yeah, but still.
Like, you won't fry them, you don't boil them.
You can't bake them then.
But it
Yeah, you
says it says it doesn't completely undo it. It just breaks it down a little bit. It makes it less potent. But yes, you're correct. Consuming psychedelic mushrooms can lead to significant psychological distress.
That would be me. That would be me because I'd be like, uh-oh, I'm getting out of control. I don't like this. And then it would just be me sitting here being like, I wish I didn't feel like this. And then it would make me feel bad.
I feel like we'd have to go to like a. I feel like we'd have to go to that meadow from Twilight.
Why?
Well, they say that like in order to prevent bad trips, you have to be put into an environment that's just like obviously one safe, duh, but like that's kind of like nice to begin with. Like they would say don't go into a dark room. You know, like I always hear of people like doing mushrooms in like the fucking like abandoned psych centers. I'm like, I can't think of a worse idea than that. Do you want to see ghosts?
I think they want to like have a bad trip. Or like
That's crazy.
Because like why else would you do it there? I mean,
That's crazy.
well, okay. If you just want to get high and like you need a place to do it, then that does work. But just remember where you are. Like, but then again, like people who are doing that are probably not the brightest people either.
Yes, true. What, you mean just mushrooms in general? I guess you're right.
Drugs in general. Just
Yeah,
drugs
you're right,
in
you're right,
general.
you're right, you're right.
I don't think they really, are not thinking things through.
You're right.
Before doing things.
I feel like when they do them in like places that are like particularly fucked up or scary or whatever, like I'm disturbed by that place, and I'm like, listen, I'm like slightly superstitious, you know, and I do get spooked. You know, you get vibes from places for sure. So, like, I can't imagine a worse place where I'm already kind of on edge just to take something that is fucking psychedelic. But I feel like some people confuse, like, thrill with, like, actual psychological trauma. Like, I feel like if you get a bad enough trip in a place like that, you could be like, holy fuck! Like, I feel like you might be wiring some of your brain chemistry from a bad enough trip. I don't know, maybe, because that's not entirely impossible, I don't believe. But what the what the fudge do I know?
Same. I've never done it. I'm not interested in doing it, so I don't know anything.
I want to have a midsummer experience, and I'm not just talking about when she takes the drugs. I'm talking about the whole thing. So
I've still never seen that movie. You always reference that. Like I know what you're talking about. And I'm like,
there's one scene in the movie. People say that, like, one scene in the movie, she takes shrooms, and people say, like, oh, it's like the perfect visual representation of what happens when you take shrooms. And it's a cool scene, but the rest of the movie's pretty fucked up. So I'm saying, like, I want that, but I want the rest of it too. Tara's done reading.
I just.
So we're done streaming.
I'm tired.
She's
I thought we finished the book tonight, but okay.
She's feckin' tired. Alright, till next time.